That was a very drawn out can open. That was one of the longer ones.
Heyo.
A little
For
more of
dramatic effect.
yeah, a little more of a hiss to it. The tall boy did not disappoint. I wasn't gonna have a drink for this one, but after thinking
Only
about it, I
fitting.
ran down to the gas station and got a tall boy so I could have a drink, can to open, because this weekend was a ton of fun.
Heck yeah. It the weather ended up cooperating super well.
Mm-hmm.
It did get a little cold, but it was dry the whole time. So
Thankfully,
we will chalk that up for a win.
because there was
Uh,
rain in the forecast Friday and Saturday at one point going into that weekend.
oh yeah, like 10 days or a week out, everybody's like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like everybody's gonna be in the
Yeah,
tents. It's gonna suck. But you
never
know
a
what?
fun time when that happens.
It came through clutch, and it was a great time. You and I got to hang out with some of our friends that we marched with, and people that marched for the Mex and Blue Coats around our time and stuff, and just hang out at the Airbnb and food and lots of drums and lots of band.
Yep. So we're here today to recap our weekend, pretty much. Recap what happened at finals in the Independent World Class, a little bit about Scholastic World, Independent Open we checked out. But before we get into that, welcome everyone to the Aged Out Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Fantini, and with me as always is,
Evan Worrell.
as he tries to say that with beer in his mouth.
Yeah.
Comment, like, subscribe on YouTube, or check us out on podcast services. Do the vice versa thing. Go to the other platform. Whatever you prefer works great. Facebook, Instagram, follow there. Never miss an update or new content we are putting out on the airwaves. I guess it's kind of airwaves. And then lastly, for any financial support, patreon.com/agedoutpodcast or the join button on YouTube. Only options 99 cents a month. Okay. We were pretty in the ballpark with how Independent World played out.
Do you want to start with that, or do you want to?
I mean, so I'd be fine starting with that, and then if anything riffs off of that, we can do that. Or if you had an idea where you
I
want to
didn't know
start,
if you want to shout out some of these other shows, these other classes, just right off the bat.
yeah, we can talk about that first. That's fine.
Yeah, I did want to give a shout out. Just run through the list of medalists in the other classes. PSA, third place, Greenfield Central, silver place, Centerville High School, gold medalist for Percussion Scholastic A, Springford High School. Did also want to give an honorary mention to Unionville High School, who would have finished fourth had it not been for a 9-point penalty due to spilling some paint in the tunnel that delayed the show. Never.
Is it raining at your house?
Yeah.
I can
But
hear
you
the rain
can't-
through your mic. That's awesome. Totally
That's it.
fine. I just was like, is this mic freaking out or is it raining? That's awesome. Continue.
But yeah, would have finished fourth, but it's all right. They got the penalty. They still had a great run. They got like a standing ovation. I posted it on their story like a day or two ago. But yeah, PIA, bronze medalist Revelation, silver Charles, I want to say Towney percussion, TOWNE, and then the gold medalist M3, which is in, I believe, the Matrix family there.
I think that is, yep.
Our Percussion Scholastic Open bronze medalist Kettering Fairmont. So kudos to Tommy Realm and the team up there.
Mhm.
Silver medalist Fishers and gold medalist Victor J. Andrew. PIO, which we'll kind of get back to because we did watch a little bit more. There's like a topic there for discussion, but bronze medalist Cap City 2, which I believe is their first medal in that class, I believe. Silver medalist Q2 in the Atlantic Quest family, and then the gold medalist May Rocky. Impact would have been second without incurring a penalty, but they ended up finished fourth.
I thought that kind of sucked for them. It always sucks when a penalty takes a medal away because it's not really like, I get it. You have to have rules and everything in place to prevent people from taking too long or just like doing ridiculous things that are never going to work out under time constraints in an arena and setting like that. But it does suck when you see it lose a medal for somebody.
Yeah. But the overall, the PIO shows were fun to watch. I really enjoyed watching. I don't know. I think I watched like the top 6.
Yes,
or something like that.
I think we did do top 6 on prelims day.
Yeah, that sounds right. But the shows were
not
great.
Prelims, semis, sorry, we weren't there.
Man, continue to be just really blown away by the quality. I thought Q2's battery was phenomenal.
They had the best battery in open class. I'll make that statement right here.
Honestly, when I saw the spread, like, first of all, I thought Q2 would have probably won, personally. But then when I saw the spread for that class, I was like, really?
It kind of didn't make sense to me, if I'm being honest. I mean, Meraki was good. They won last year. Now they've won this year. didn't see where that it was like a 3-point spread, wasn't it? Like wasn't even
it
close.
was large. Yeah,
and we watched the finals. It was actually finals day. We watched PIO, the last like 3 or 4 groups. Now that I think about it.
Yep. We watched some PIO lot on finals day before we went in and caught the end of it.
Yeah, we were very, very surprised. Not necessarily that Meraki won, but we were surprised that it was by like 3+ points.
Yeah, it was
like,
large.
We didn't see the gap watching the runs, but that's nothing you can do about that. That's how the way the cookie crumbles as I get tongue tied. But let's take this opportunity because you just went over some open class results and everything. This is something that came up with us and a few of our friends while we were there. There's a lot of like AQ2, Infinity 2, Matrix Open, but then it's M3. Like
Cap City 2.
Cap City 2.
UP 2. Yeah, there's a lot of 2s.
When you have I don't like the numeral because to me it's like, oh, this is our almost good enough ensemble. Like it just comes off as very like not demeaning, but something about it doesn't sit right with me. It's just like, this is our baby ensemble. It's like, well, they're almost winning their class. Like, are they really a baby ensemble? Like, yeah, they're not your world group, but maybe
I guess I don't view it that way. I mean, as people who also competed in PIO, like sometimes there's obviously a very real place for those members, whether it's
for sure. I'm not demeaning what those members are doing. I'm just saying like, I'd rather just call it Cap City Open, Infinity Open. Like that to me would be, or give them a whole different name, make them their own ensemble identity. They can still be under your umbrella and just give them their own ensemble identity. I don't know. We can get more creative than that, I feel like. But all right, rant over.
I did appreciate like the entertainment factor for a lot of the open class shows. Yes. Like they weren't trying to be too esoteric or
much more
just
literal.
Entertaining. They were just fun.
Yeah, much more literal.
And also, I know we talked about this too. Probably appreciate the open class cymbal lines better than the world class ones.
Oh, dude.
The cymbal features were way more well constructed in open class. The impact one stood out. I think they had 6 cymbals.
I think while we watched that,
I remember that one.
Was it our friend Chris that texted in our group in the middle of that and goes, I think that's the best. No, it was Kevin Thorburn, Snoid. He goes, that was the best cymbal feature I've ever seen. Yeah, not even like today. Like I think that's the best cymbal feature I've ever seen. And all right, you're teeing up my rants for me here. So let's talk about cymbal features for a second, because this was another thing that I'm going to turn my voice level down a little bit for the listeners' sake. All right, there is a right and a wrong way to me. I watched a lot of shows, and a cymbal feature has kind of become a staple in the indoor activity, which is totally fine. But you got to do it right. And I saw some groups do it right, in my opinion, and I saw some groups do it in a way that completely killed momentum for the show.
Yeah, I know there are like different size cymbals that people are using a lot of times, but it just doesn't read as effectively as like the bass drum splits, because you obviously have a very clear tone difference and mallet difference and everything. So sometimes
I'd say a volume difference too.
Yeah, even just a volume difference, and like some of them are just really hard to read because they're splitting stuff that's really fast, but you're like, what was that? Like I don't think cymbal lines that's kind of my shtick too. I don't think cymbal lines should be trying to split like lasers all the time. It's like, what?
Yeah, there's that, and it just comes off as weak and meager most of the time, and it's not the fault of the designers or the players. It's the nature of, like, when you split a lot of cymbal stuff, it's like the edge of the cymbal taps, or whatever the correct terminology is for that kind of thing, and it just comes off as weak when juxtaposed next to the strength of what a bass line or full battery sound is. And then when you take everything away to expose the cymbal feature, it just comes off as like rinky-dink. Even if they're doing a super good job executing it, it just comes off as not having
doesn't project as much as the other instruments.
It doesn't have the same vibe or energy or effect a feature in a different battery section would have. But go ahead.
Unless they're more open and like you're doing like they're playing notes that speak more, like the sizzles and stuff, like those little, like you're talking about, like the
taps,
edge stuff, like the taps and like some of those punches and stuff like that, like they just don't project as much. But like when it's more open and they can like put more weight into the hands,
For sure.
that stuff reads a lot better. And I thought some of those open groups did that
And
more
so
successfully.
I felt like the 4 or 5 open group cymbal features I saw worked really well the way they worked into the show. A lot of them had them at quieter moments of the show. Like during like a quote unquote ballad moment, they would work in the cymbal feature as a tasty, delicate moment backed up and supported by things in the front ensemble to give it more oomph and fit better into the context and flow of the show. Whereas when you see people do it at the end of a loud phrase and then, the cymbals start and everything drops out musically and then it's just the cymbal line splitting notes, it just doesn't have the weight or the impact that what set it up had. I think you need support from the front ensemble, or you do like a bass cymbal combined feature, or if you're going to have them completely featured, put it in a quieter moment of the show. Seamlessly transition into and out of it at a more delicate part of your show. Those seem to be the more effective cymbal features to me as an audience member versus the ones that would just have it randomly in the middle of a very aggressive battery moment and just loses all steam to the moment to me. End rant 2.
Moving on. Percussion Scholastic World, 6th place without their penalty would have been Center Grove, so I kind of threw them in there. 5th place, Sparkman. Honestly, it's been really fun to watch that ensemble kind of climb over the past few years, just continuously grow and get better. Man, they played with an extremely mature approach to the instrument. I won't even just say for high school, just in general. Watching some of their stuff in person and then the lot videos and stuff too, just, they play really, really well. They're both the front and the battery. Then we had Dartmouth in 4th, which had just a super fun show, the Gallery X show, unhinged with the chicks and stuff, and the chickens and the ducky or whatever. 3rd, Avon, and then 2nd, Ayala, which probably had the best show to me in that class.
I would second that statement.
That show was just, it just sucked you in. It was great. The intervals that they ask those performers to play in are just massive.
That was the most
environmental
impressive part
challenge.
Of it. Yeah.
They did a quad feature that was like 5 to 5. If you're thinking like yard lines, like it was very spread out. They
was
played
impressive.
Really well. And then obviously just with extreme clarity and really well done, Chino Hills won. I think it's the first time since 2019. I think I saw that.
I think that's right. I think it was before COVID was the last time Chino Hills won the gold medal. And to me, because of the level of clarity they achieved, we watched their finals run. We watched Ayala's finals run. Ayala's show was my favorite, but to me, the best playing ensemble was Chino Hills. Like they were on the money, especially finals night.
I think too, one thing that I don't want to say it gets overlooked, but one thing that definitely stood out to me that I appreciated from that show was just the attention to detail with the use of the props and the pendulums.
Oh, that was so cool.
They would like stop them or get them to create counter motion. Just really well done with the release points and the catches and grabs of that. It stood out to me. I was like, this is sick.
They might have had my favorite props on the floor. It was just very well executed, like you said, seamlessly integrated into the effect moments of the show, and it just very well made, clearly, and it just worked. It was cool.
It was like a simplistic, like I don't know, like a minimalistic prop, but it's just very effective.
Yeah, very good stuff.
Which I guess will transition us over.
So do you want to get into how things played out in Independent World, starting from the bottom all the way to the top?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, let me switch scenes, and we'll dive right in. So I am going to zoom in a little more too. Scoot over.
We did get, it happens every year, but on our predictions, we always get some of the messages or comments that we're sleeping on groups. I think according to our comment section, we were sleeping on like 10 to 12 groups this year, which, I wrote this down, 29 groups will end the season hoping that they placed better than they did. That doesn't mean they're unhappy with the season for sure, because obviously I never won an indoor, and I was very happy with the seasons, in my experience and my time drumming with my friends and just putting together something great. But 29 groups are basically going to wish they did better than they did.
Yep. Every year, it's inevitable.
There's only one winner.
Yep. Only one gold medalist. But I'll also point out there probably was only, and we'll get to it here in a minute, maybe one group that I would agree that we were sleeping on. So,
yeah.
And the reason I say only one group is because we've said this every year. We've done these predictions. The groups that don't make semis, it's really hard without actually watching the runs, because consistency is going to be an issue day to day for ensembles at that level of performance. It's the area that 21 through 30 is the area you're more throwing darts against a dartboard than anything else. It's tough.
And like one person commented, is like on our Instagram when we posted the predictions, like, are these based off of lot videos? I was like, well, I watched the lot videos, I watched the show videos, I take notes on groups, I look at recaps. I would almost guarantee my house that I watched more lot videos and show videos than 90 to 95% of people out there.
Yep.
But
we're both pretty plugged in. I'd even say you more so than me throughout the season.
And too, like, it is what it is. Some of them, like when we make them, the videos are 4 weeks old, so it's like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah,
it is what it is.
And I would say that's probably why the one group we were sleeping on, in quotes, would be Strike. Yeah. We definitely, now granted, there was content from them from earlier in the season when I was doing my homework, so to speak, to put my final predictions together. There was a video I saw from a couple weeks prior, and it wasn't super impressive, but they either got a lot better or it was just a bad video, and that can happen. And no matter the reason, great for them. They made semis. When's the last time Strike made semis? Because I feel like they've been towards the bottom for a little while here. I could be completely naive statement. I'm kind of shooting from the hip on that one, but congratulations to Strike. We got that one way wrong. Probably the one we got the most wrong out of anybody would be Strike. I had them in 28th. You had them in 26th, and they got 19th. So all credit to that ensemble staff on an awesome season. So other than that, I will say we didn't get very many groups on the nose, like exactly right.
Right.
But we were in the ballpark of within at least one place with most groups. I mean, looking at the final tally here, I'll adjust the spreadsheet.
Yeah, we didn't nail a ton of them, but
you nailed 5, I nailed 4. But
as far as just one off, like, we one placement off, we hit a lot.
We were really, really close on a lot, and a lot of that's going to come from we had one group that ended up finishing like 3 places higher, which then shoves everybody who we had the order right for those 3 groups that got moved down because we were off on that one. So we were kind of pretty close to ranking people more or less effectively or having them in the right region of the finishings. So, again, let's see. Any other surprises based on what we thought? I thought gold would have finished a little higher because of the show. Ended up not panning out. I know they went earlier in round 1.
They went very early, yeah.
They were no, POW was first.
POW was first. I think gold was second.
So gold, that's an uphill battle. Also, speaking of POW going first, they finished 7th after prelims and went dead first. I did watch them on their prelims run on the stream here in Louisville before we left the next day for Dayton, and I remember being like, well, POW just kicked this off in a big way. That was good. I thought the run was great.
The judges can hold their numbers for the whole round, which is good. I would imagine, I think we'll maybe try to get some judges on to talk, but I would imagine they probably did some shuffling of those numbers originally. Like, I'm going to have to bump this up. I'm going to have to bump this up, just so they go back and change it to make sure they get things right. That prelims judging panel really has a tough job. I mean, there's no performance order, really. So you're trying to go in and score and rank and do your spreads on 30 groups, and you're going to send 10 groups home. So, that's a tall ask. And that recap was actually pretty solid. Yeah.
Yep. And so something else I'll point out before we get into the semifinalists and above is we were also, to summarize, we were only off. We only had one group wrong that made top 20 than we thought. So we had the top 20. Order obviously ended up not being 100% correct, but we had the top 20 identified minus one group. And the same thing holds for finals. We had the finalists identified accurately minus one group, and that would have been Flux, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
I didn't have that. I had two. But wait, did I just have Blue
No, I
Knights?
think Flux were the only ones we had wrong in finals. And then semis, I had MBI who didn't make it.
I was pretty off on Blue Knights. I had them higher than that.
And then you had Blue Knights who didn't make it.
Uh-huh.
And so obviously Flux and Rhythmic Force were the flip-flop from who we thought was going to make finals versus didn't. And the other semifinalists we had right. So you and I each had one group in semis that didn't make it.
If I had flip-flop Blue Knights and Strike in my predictions, I would have had all 20 groups that made it.
And me and MBI switching those two would have been much closer. So
Right.
we were pretty good at calling the top 20 and the top 15. Very fairly accurate there. But let's talk about some of the semifinalist groups. I thought Vigilantes, where they finished, was right where we thought, obviously. Rhythmic Force, we both had them higher, one spot out of finals. They ended up being the group that made it in. And Flux
it was like
did
a
not.
very clear cutoff. I'm pretty sure on the recap, it was like a 2-point gap from 15th to 16th. So it was like, all right, these are your finalists. Boom.
The judges made a very distinct call there to be like, yep, these are our 15 best groups, and then a significant gap, so to speak, numerically.
Do you want to talk about the shows at all, or like what we thought, or do you just want to talk about the groups that made it?
I honestly don't have a ton to say about the groups that did make semis. I mean, we've discussed what we thought of Dark Sky earlier. Infinity 2 was the pirate show, right?
Yeah,
I figured that show would play well. I mean, it's an obvious, makes sense show from an effects standpoint. It's hard not to get it. But yeah, we can jump into the finalists now. So let's address the one we got wrong, Flux versus Rhythmic Force. So to me, Rhythmic Force took the less is more approach to their musical writing. And if you look at the music recap from finals night, they were actually ahead of, I believe, Connexus and Cap City on the music recap. And to me, they were cleaner. Their books were easier. And I think if you look at composition, that holds. I think that's what I was trying to think of. I think they were 15th in comp, but 13th in performance, which I could agree with. I mean, they were definitely cleaner than Cap City and Connexus. And I know cleaner isn't everything involved with the performance caption, but
it's an important part.
It's a huge important part, and we'll get to that later when we talk about Rhythm X and Pulse being in the first two spots versus the other top ensembles.
Well, also, if you think of that, like that caption being worth 30 points that they averaged between the two judges, the composition part is only worth 10 points, and the execution part is worth 20.
Yep.
So they do give more weight. Like if you get a 95 on the left box for comp and a 95 on the right side for execution, that 95 is giving you more points than the left side. So,
and I'm glad it is that way because it puts more power in the hands of the performers.
Yeah, you reward the members.
Yes, I think it's very good they do it that way. So I was pleasantly surprised with Rhythmic Force. I think they had a little bit of a slide back last season. I don't think they did not make finals last year, I believe.
I don't think so.
And then coming back in the year after, making it back in by just playing clean. That's what did it to me. Like they just played better than everybody in 16 through 20. And I'm glad that the judging community rewarded that. Now, obviously, there's the effect captions, the visual captions, that all had to be in place. But as a more clarity-minded person, to me, they deserve to be in finals because they were notably cleaner than the 16 through 20 groups to me.
Even when we did our predictions, when I was watching their shows, I felt like this is a world-class ensemble. Like, not that others aren't, but this feels like world-class through and through as far as solid design, solid execution. I thought they did well as far as the approach that they have in the performance captions, music performance, visual performance. So
yep. That's I fully agree. So from there, Connexus and Cap City, I nailed those two on the nose. You had Connexus in 15th. They ended up one higher, and you had Cap City in 12th. They ended up one lower. So you're one off on those two. Still in the ballpark. I thought I'm happy for Connexus because I feel like the show this year didn't maintain the standard from design. as last year's show. I was a fan of their show last year. It was fun, exciting, well paced. This year's show was still good, but I don't think it was up to the same level.
Yeah, I think that you have to give a lot of kudos to that team for making finals again, even
Yes,
through
that's where I'm
staff
going.
changes.
Yep.
For sure.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
They certainly aren't shy with the volume.
No, they will drum a lot in
Sometimes
your
it's
face.
electronic heavy.
Yeah.
Like,
But I am glad they were able to maintain the consistency and get back into finals again. Like you said, with the staff change, I thought they played fairly well compared to what I'd heard them. I feel like they got to a higher level of clarity than I thought they were going to, having watched multiple runs at regionals throughout the year, lot videos that popped up. So good for them. Congratulations on another finals appearance, and hopefully they can keep it going into the next season. Cap City, they've been in finals for a while now.
yeah, I think that, like what I said in the predictions, there's credence that like a staff just knows how to get over the edge and finish the season well. I did think that they had maybe like a little electronic issue during the show. Like there was like this monotone buzz that was going on.
I heard that
for,
too.
Like the first minute. But performance quality is not lacking with that group. Like they perform, they go for it, they buy into the show.
Very much so. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's finished. Yep.
So I do want to point out something, a risk they took that I don't think was worth it. I know why they did it, because it fit with the whole concept of the show, the skeleton, all that stuff. They had that moment, and I feel like it might have been longer earlier in the season. It was a fairly short moment, which I think was smart if they did shorten it, because the risk reward to me is not worth it. From a
deconstructed drums.
Yeah, the drums that didn't have shells. It was just a head with a rim and like the bars, the whatever those things are.
The tension rods.
Tension rods. Thank you, Jesus.
You don't even know you're an instrument.
Listen, dude. I'm allowed to have a brain fart in the heat of the moment, okay? But so the reason I say that is on that kind of a playing surface, if it's not piss clean, it just doesn't sound good.
It's like playing on concrete.
It sounds really bad if it's not piss clean. And unfortunately, I would say very few of these groups that were in finals could have played anything on those things piss clean to the standard, to where I felt like yes, it fits with the show concept, would have been worth it for the detriment that it's going to cause to your potential music score of just like dirtiness.
Or like maybe the construction of it. Like there's always certain things when you get down the season, like you wish you had back. Maybe just like a little bit less dense.
Exactly. That's where I was about to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you let the effect of the show consistency with the concept carry it, and you play easier beats.
Having been around that group, I felt like the first 2 to 2.5 minutes of that show was like a significant change in the way that they typically arrange. Like it was very it was like very well done, like segmentally crafted. Like you'd kind of have tenors and snares and this, like it built well. Like the first 2 minutes of that show were my favorite parts of that show. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. I didn't dislike their show at all. I thought the concept was consistent. So good for them. Another successful season as well. Let's go to Atlantic Quest. Their show hurt them.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just call like the elephant in the room. The show was like cargo fast, drums play fast. Like not to oversimplify, but it's kind of what it was, and that was this deep. I'm sure there were a little more layers to it there.
I mean, I wrote down too, just freaking TVs. Like they never do what you want them to do. The battery plays insanely well. I think the front is good, but I think ultimately some of the choices from musical selections didn't lend the front to really showcase some of their musicality or virtuosity in those delicate moments.
Yeah.
They certainly, that show does not lack notes. They play a lot,
which I love personally.
Cool. Yeah, which is cool.
I loved their lot. I loved watching it on the floor finals night. It was fun. If you were a drummer, it was like everything you could ever want. Just like snare features, full battery moments, fast notes, flam rudiments, just all kinds of awesomeness. And on top of it, when they were locked in, like when they were playing together well, that's a top 5, top 6 battery sound. in the activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had that drum line was great this year. One of the better drum lines, in my opinion. I just can't wait to see what they do, because I know TJ and all them down there are already brainstorming about, all right, how do we
Get over the next
learn
tier.
from this and bump up even higher. So I
Probably
was a fan.
the best baseline in WGI.
I think we said the same thing last season too, didn't we?
I think last year I said top 2.
Who was the best? Or who was the other one? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I think there was somebody else's baseline that was nasty last year.
Yeah.
Either way, expect really good things from AQ. You and I were each one spot off on where we predicted. I had him one higher. You had him one lower. So right in the ballpark again. GMU, we were both off by one place. We both had them in 10th. They ended up in 11th. I think GMU kind of suffered a little bit from the same thing that AQ did, in the sense that even if the front ensemble was really good, it wasn't as obvious as other groups made it in the writing, in the arrangement.
Yeah, I did say too, like when they came on, because I think that they went on before AQ in in finals, because they were behind. They did a flip flop in the order.
Yep.
But there's a very clear difference in this ensemble clarity from the previous groups before them.
Yes.
Man, the trombone was hot that night though. it was blaring.
The first time that trombone played, me and all of us sitting in that area all looked at each other. We're just like, oh, it assaulted the senses. It was a little hot. So
yeah, I think that, that as that team is kind of now in place, they'll continue to grow and make some changes as well, and just work better together. The front didn't seem as prevalent as some of the battery stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't. Of course, that could just be my inclination to gravitate bias towards that.
Yeah, could be our bias a little bit, but
that's what I wrote. So
right, same here. That was my initial impression as well of that group. I think they play well. We know that staff there knows how to clean a battery, clean a percussion ensemble across the board. We've seen them do it in the summer. GMU's been a solid staple, right around the top 10 spot the last few years. They're doing good things. They got the Fairbanks edition this year. I think he'll further integrate into that design process and team, and I think you'll continue to see them improve and continue to get better. But I liked the writing. I thought the battery played really well. The front was good. Good year for them. I'm sure, like you said, 29 ensembles think they should have finished higher than they ended up, but it is what it is. So,
right.
We already talked about Powell a little bit. We both had them in 9th. They ended up in 10th. And this whole region, more or less, well, we'll get into that later, but Powell maintained the 7th spot despite going on first on prelims, which is a massive accomplishment. I watched their prelims run, like I said, prior. I did think on the floor finals night, it didn't surprise me that, because weren't they in 9th after semis? I think Matrix jumped them semis to finals.
Yeah, they were in 9th. Yeah.
Okay, so they were where we predicted them, and then Matrix jumped them. And we'll get to Matrix here in a minute. That was a group we were a little too low on, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I did feel like it didn't surprise me when I saw that Powell got jumped and moved down a spot, because I didn't feel like their finals run was their best. Sitting there, I was like, the battery sounds going in and out in terms of clarity, like within phrases, and it could have just been finals night jitters. You never know what's happening or where people are at, but it just seemed like it wasn't as good as their previous 2 days. So it didn't surprise me, but I still think the fact that Pulse's previously open group is top 10
is wild.
Expect Pulse to be competing for the gold medal from here on out, because it's like, oh, we had some age outs. Well, luckily we have another group that under our umbrella that is also top 10, and we can just reload every year.
I'm not sure how that dynamic works. It's interesting though.
Let's talk to Shriver about that.
but yeah, Powell, great show. Concept was clean and clear. Musical package was very clean and clear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. All right, Matrix, thoughts?
Man, those lights are blinding. I think logistically, I just had trouble reading the show. Like, the front electronics were cranked, so it made it hard to hear the battery at times. Like, it's just like, is this good? I don't know.
Yeah.
There were 2 snare moments in the latter half of the show that, like, the sound dropped out, and that was the only thing. It's like, yeah, I can hear this I mean, we're sitting right next to the judges. Like, I'm literally touching elbows with the judges.
Yep.
Literally. So like, yeah, I can hear this moment. Great. Like, yes. You know, sometimes there's the pit spread where the vibes were like behind the battery. I'm like, yeah, I can't hear any of that. Like, who knows? Like, I guess it's probably coming through the speakers, but it gets lost.
Yep, I would
So,
agree. I mean, I said going into the weekend, I think they played better this year than they have the past couple. I stand by that statement. I think they had a better playing year, ensemble clarity-wise, than they have the past couple. And I think I had my opinions from previous seasons impact my prediction to where I didn't look at just this year's ensemble in a vacuum. You know, they're kind of we complained about Rhythm X being a ghost on social media. Matrix is
They
kind
are
of the
too,
same
yeah.
way. Like they're really I think I had watched their run at one of either the Indy Regional or Dayton Regional. Was
I
like
think
the
it was the
only
Northern
thing.
Kentucky regional, and that was it.
Yes, that's what it was. One at NKU in our home state was the
Which was
only.
like, yeah, early.
So I kind of used last year's opinions. I'm assuming you probably did the same thing off of watching one run a month
Yeah.
before finals. So it was kind of, we'll just see where this plays out. And from there, Monarch, they ended up in 8th. You were 2 places off. You had them up in
Yeah.
6th. I had them in 7th. Why do you think they finished a little below where you thought?
Well, full send, I would just say it's because their tuning was very exposed and they just weren't super consistent on the floor. I think if they'd have played that show clean, which you could say for anybody, they
Yeah,
would have done better. But I think that show, if they pulled it off and played clean and consistent throughout, they are sitting 7-6. Like I would back that.
Yeah.
But you know, they didn't quite have the consistency. It was really, really good. But they were just giving up some small stuff throughout. So I think that's ultimately, like, you know, I'm sure if I go to look at the recap.
And in full transparency, we're at the point of the activity now, top 8, top 10, where
you're really starting to dial in.
Just like in drum corps, you're splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this group, show of the night. This group was cleaner than this group on finals, and you saw it happen where Matrix jumped POW, night to night. I mean, so let's move on to Infinity. I had them a little higher. Again, one off in opposite directions. You had them in 7th. They were in 6th. I had them in 5th. I had mentioned, if you go back and listen to our predictions podcast, that my flopping of Infinity with Mystique was a very last-minute decision before we recorded that, based on 2 videos I saw on YouTube, and I think I just happened to catch the wrong lot video of Mystique and the right lot video of Infinity to make that last-second call, because I thought Mystique was probably the 3rd cleanest ensemble there.
I still, like...
After seeing them in person.
I still would go with my prediction. I think MCM should have been 4th. So...
There is definitely a world, and you can 100% make that argument.
Yeah. I mean, I know on reality and the spread, it wasn't super close. It was like 0.9 from them to Broken City, but I mean, of course, I'm probably speaking more into the music box, but like they just played way better. So I would still.
Mystique played well. I thought Mystique's run. So a lot of us sitting in our section after Mystique played, did their finals run, and then I think Broken City would have gone on right after them, right?
Well, yeah, we'll back up real quick. So,
okay.
United, you know.
Oh, I skipped United. Shit, sorry.
You skipped United.
My bad.
You know,
Apologies,
I thought that this was one where the front ensemble variety stood out to me a lot. And then they had like this integrated battery roll with the high battery, the snares and quads were in the stack, and like they turned on the profile and it's just like freaking nailed it. I was like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Strong run. The fingerprints on the mirrors were driving me a little crazy.
Yeah, I saw that too. That
was
like
funny. Sponsored by get a sponsorship by Windex next time. Yeah. And then, you know, after them was Infinity, who like great snare and battery. Sometimes the quad definition was a little hard to read. It was a great sound design, but that's one show it's easy to get lost and immersed in.
Oh yeah. It sucked me in every time I watched it. I saw it multiple times. I watched it on semis day and on finals night. Big fan of that show. I do think 6 was correct for them.
Yeah.
After having seen it all. Now moving back up to Mystique here, I was getting ahead of myself. Thank you for. Well, I guess I'll talk about United. I think they ended up right where they should have. I know I put them in 8th, and so did you, but we were just a little too high on Monarch. Monarch didn't have the consistency to end up taking that spot. So good for United. You know, I said it before, I'll say it again. I like the approach to the drum. Might be a little abrasive at times for the indoor medium, but they usually do it very well. I thought the show was solid. They had good runs when I saw it, so not much else to say there, really, honestly. But
yeah, MCM. First of all, it was the only show of the night that I stood up for, just because I felt like they deserved it.
Oh, dude, their finals run was
obviously
nasty.
I clapped. I appreciate it for everybody,
yeah.
but like that one got me out of my chair. The full battery moments are nasty. The silent moment was great.
Yes.
And kudos to the 2024 WGI world class spectators and people in the arena for that. In semifinals, they got to the silent moment, and some jackass decided to yell, which
there were a few people that
show.
Yelled stuff in the silence at semis, unfortunately. And we were all joking going in, like, all right, so who's going to yell what? Like, how many people are going to yell stuff in the silence? And thankfully, like you said, nobody did. So
it was such a cool moment. Their interval demand is also insane.
Oh yeah, massive.
Yeah. So
we watched them in the lot a lot on semis day, and they were giving up some stuff, but everybody was throughout the weekend. Everybody always does. But then on the floor, finals night, that's, I feel like, a run you want to end the season on. Like, that was, they got done, and I was like, that they just played their ass off. Like, that was, it was clear, readable. I loved the snare tuning on the floor, the way it came off, by the way, in that venue. They've got that down to a science, so good job. Whether it's Ben Heydrich, Dan Twyford, whoever's tuning those things, I thought it was very clear and readable. Plus, it also helps when you're playing super clean. I think I said it way earlier this. Still stand by. I think it was probably one of the best quad lines Mystique's had in a while. They could drum really well. It was just a really good battery, really good front. When they got done, and then Broken City, we'll go ahead and jump here, and then Broken City did their run, because I believe it would have been Mystique, Broken City, based on the way all the orderings were after semis.
Yep.
All of us in our area were like, I think Mystique might jump Broken City. Like that.
I thought that they would.
Mystique had a great run. I didn't think Broken City's quads had the best run in the world finals night. The musical moments, though, the design, the effect musically and visually in that show, the nuance, came off really well in the arena. A lot of cool stuff like we talked about earlier. I just think Mystique should have jumped them from an execution standpoint, because I felt that Mystique was executed at a higher level.
I will ship that statement. Broken City's so good at crafting moments and a vibe and like the music effect. But sometimes like it's hard to hear. I don't know if it's the tuning or just whatever. Sometimes it's hard to hear the low end clarity, especially when it's like full ensemble. The basses have so much demand in what they're doing from like a spacing and like what they're spinning around and stuff. Sometimes it makes it hard for me to read it as far as like what the intent is. But yeah, and sometimes I do wonder, like, and it has nothing to do with really the membership, but if the way that they pace their season out and their design and learning progress like hinders some of the consistency just because they finish the show late. So like in the latter half of the season, they're probably like really working to dial in the back half of the show. Or are they neglecting stuff that's in the front half? I don't know.
Maintain the consistency in the stuff they learned earlier. You mean like
right?
I could see it. I could see it being a part of the.
That's just pure speculation, but
yeah, that's what podcasts are for, though. Speculation and spreading rumors on the internet. So, Broken City show, like it always does, hits different live than in videos. I've kind of just accepted that at this point when I do my predictions of they're gonna place higher than I think, and the show, I'm gonna like the show more in person than I am over the internet. And there's always a few shows like that every year, but they're always in that group that's way better live, which is a good thing. That's what you want, honestly. If I had to pick one of the two. RCC, you and I were both fairly confident in our second place call for them going into the weekend. That is not how it panned out. That is how it panned out after prelims.
Yeah, I believe X was in fourth after prelims.
They were, and if you, I had my predictions were dead on for the top 4 after prelims. But then obviously different panel. That's not the final placements.
Yeah, when people start going back to back, it's
exactly. It's a little bit different seeing them boom, boom, boom in a row. But I thought I loved RCC show in person just as much as I liked it on the internet. The musical arrangement.
Yeah, the show's a hit. Although we all were kind of like chuckling at some of the narration at the end. Like, I don't know how many times we were texting the words morphine drip to each other.
It happened a lot. Happened a whole lot.
Just because it just kind of came out like morphine drip. That seems.
And I get what they were doing. They were just like the
cycling
stages of a life well
yeah.
lived and all that stuff. I get it. But
that one took me out though.
The last 30 seconds of the show, I wasn't a fan going into the weekend, and I still wasn't a fan after it. But that doesn't mean it's like Tim Jackson told us one time: if there's one cloud in the sky, don't let it ruin the clear blue sky around it. Kind of one of those things.
That's a good. Yeah, that's
kind
very good.
Kind of one of those things. So good for them. I did think, they had some clarity issues in and out, in terms of battery clarity throughout the weekend.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like the balance was truly dialed in. Like rhythmic interp, it's all there, but some just balance things that popped out. It's like that didn't. All right.
I will point out too, it didn't make sense to me because it seemed that they played better running around the floor than they did standing still in the lot. Which again, if you had to pick one or the other, as Scott Johnson's told us, the show is what matters, and they were to me they were better on the move than they were standing still, which is again what you want, and it could be they just might not stand still and drum a whole lot in rehearsal, which is understandable. And again, they were still extremely good. I'm not sitting here being like RCC was stupid dirty, like they weren't.
No.
Just compared to the groups around them, compared to Mystique, compared to X, Pulse, which we'll get to, there were just some clarity, consistency issues on and off to me. Okay. The other biggest miss, and I think the group that surprised anyone that I've talked to going into the weekend, I don't think anyone thought X was going to get first or second, except for the people that teach and march rhythm X. And I don't say that in a negative way. I say that just like I heard a lot of people say it. That they're like, is X going to get fifth? Is X going to get fourth?
Yeah, which one person is funny comment is like, I'm just waiting for you guys to do the podcast so I can hear you eat crow on your rhythm X, which I 100% will not do because like
most people did not expect them to finish that high.
Yeah, if they had gone in like with what the show they had a month ago, they probably would have finished fourth or fifth.
The show was very different from 4 weeks ago,
and just the energy from which they performed it with, which was extremely different from like those videos 3-4 weeks prior. So, no, I will 100% not admit that I missed that. I mean, I was one spot off. Like, no. They did, adapt a lot of things in that and fix a lot of issues and just really squeeze every, like, just drop out of that orange or whatever. Mm-hmm. The front ensemble was crazy good.
Yes.
And, they have a great, obviously, battery, especially the upper battery with the snares and the quads. I mean, their quads probably spoke better than anyone's on the floor as far as just the tuning and, like, cutting. And, the snare line wasn't flawless, but just really, really strong.
It was pretty close.
No, actually, absolutely no one was flawless. So
no. Even there were a couple ticks we heard on Pulse's finals run, too, in battery lands. But... yeah. I mean, they won music. X won 1 from Prospery, and I think 1 in comp and 2 in performance from Rarick, I believe.
Yeah, so they tied the music box with Pulse. They did win the music box in semis outright, but they tied music. They tied music in semis. And then they won it outright.
Yeah, I was going to say, they were 1-1 from Prospery and 1-2 from Rarick. They should have won the caption.
So they actually won or tied 3 of the 4 captions.
Fun fact, they've won music 3 years in a row now.
Music Effect.
Music Effect, sorry.
Yeah. 2022, 2023, 2024. They have one music effect. 3
So
years
I think
in a
they
row.
have that category kind of down to a
Dialed
science. Dialed in a little bit in that area for sure. Um,
I think that there was like some controversy around
Yeah.
like, people saying they got robbed, they got robbed, they got robbed. I would be willing to bet that nobody on the staff feels like that this year. You know, there's one judge on the final sheet that looks like an outlier, but if you go back through that caption and look at all 3 days, then the judge that looks like an outlier is actually not the outlier. The judge who's the opposite looks like the outlier.
Yeah.
So,
3 of
people get
4.
put in those positions to make a call that they think is right, and like you can't say it's wrong because those two people could have watched 2 different shows. Like one could have watched side 1 the whole time, one could have watched side 2 the whole time. You just don't know. Like you're not in that position, we're not in that position, so you just trust it. Like it's a subjective activity at the end of the day, and it's not ever going to be unfallible.
And
Infallible?
most would not argue the point, or not debate the point rather, that visual was where they were struggling most of the year. Like that was even when we talked to certain staff members going into the week, like visuals where they were getting hammered at regionals. And yes, they made a lot of adjustments to the show, but like you said, I mean, there were 2 prelims judges and then 2 judges that did. This is the visual caption we're talking about, right? For those that don't know, there's 2 prelims judges and then 2 judges that did semis and finals to keep it consistent. 3 of the 4 were not fans visually. It was the other guy that had.
In prelims overall, they were like 6th from 1, 4th from 1, which would have had them like 5th overall on that caption from prelims. So it's like,
so I think it was Metz. Metz was the one that had him 1-1 finals night.
Yeah. So technically, if you're looking at all 4, he would have been the outlier.
He is the outlier. So don't freak out on the internet like X is getting robbed and one judge cost him a gold medal and stuff. Like, yes, on finals night, it's like the guy that missed the free throw at the very end of the tournament game. Like, but yeah, you're not talking about the extra turnovers 5 minutes before or the missed 3-pointer or the layup you botched and missed, breakaway layup. Like, it's one of those type of situations. And I feel for him. It sucks to look at the recap and be like, if this one guy had us.
I mean, honestly, after the show, and then we'll talk about Pulsar in a second, like, I was surprised that they were that close. And, like, maybe if they had another day, like, if it was a 4-day weekend and they got to go again on Sunday, they could have, like, finally crossed the barrier because they did inch closer all weekend.
The gap did close.
But, after Pulse performed, we were all just like, I don't know how you beat that for this year.
They were the best all year. Another fun fact for you, like X has won Music GE 3 years in a row at finals. Well, now Pulse has won a gold medal 3 times in a row. And Pulse has not lost a show since 2019.
I believe that is right.
Like, that means local circuit shows to RCC in the early season. That means WGI regionals. Pulse has not lost a show since before COVID. Wild.
That's crazy.
The level of consistency that John Mapes and Ian Grom and everybody involved with that organization, the members, everything, have been able to maintain is kind of just mind-boggling.
It's just... They do say I want to grow a lot. I think I tallied that there's like 15, 16 times.
They beat you over the head with it, that's for sure.
So, yeah, but it's so clean. The pacing stays exciting. They just move from moment to moment to moment, with it's just like passing the baton flawlessly in an Olympic race when you're doing like team runs or team track events. Like, oh, hand this off. I'm going to hand this off to you. It's very well done.
Yep. You just have to take your hat off to them and say, well, the rest of us just have to figure out how to up our game so we can beat you all.
Yep.
You guys are upholding a standard. You're not missing. So I think Mike Davis texted us after their run. He goes, Pulse just doesn't miss.
They just don't miss.
They just don't miss. And it is what it is. They're the top dog. They're the blue blood that everyone... Yeah. They're the blue blood at this point that everyone needs to figure out how to beat. Because I don't see it changing. They have the feeder system in place, I'm assuming. I say that not derogatorily towards PAL. Actually, it's complimentary in my mind because it means you're very, very good. to where they can kind of just all under the same organizational umbrella keep the machine going.
Also, it's not rocket science, but this will be kind of my rant too. But them and like Pulse, Rhythm X, MCM, RCC, they all play so consistent and well, and like they have the simplest like warm up packets. Like they have some exercises with like some sauce in there. They'll give you some stank face or whatever, but for the most part, the packets are pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Like I went on a rant like walking around the lot because we were in the lot Friday and Saturday, and like I wanted to see show beats, and I was like, man, these groups play way too many exercises. Like, geez. Like, what is going on? The group's playing like 19 minutes worth of exercises. I'm like, that's like almost like three times as long as your show. And you probably in that like 8-minute show only play like 4 minutes as a battery. Like,
yeah, it's a lot. It ain't rocket science. Fundamentals. They say defense wins championships in basketball. Fundamentals win championships in drumline.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't offense that worked for UK this year, so take that. I mean, shit.
Speaking of that, not the UK thing, but the playing well, Pulse and X have simple packets with a little sauce sprinkled in. I was extremely happy to see that the two cleanest groups were the number 1 and number 2 group in the activity.
Yeah.
Because I've gone on this rant about drum corps and that we have to call ticks, we have to talk about clarity, we have to in indoor. That's the only thing that is truly in the members' hands is how clean they march the drill and how clean they play the book. Everything else is designed on the staff's hands, and I'm very happy to see that the cleanest groups are winning out. Now, granted, they have good design staffs. The shows are well designed, all blah, 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 blah.
And excellence is an effect.
It is.
It
very much is.
Yeah, I mean, I could rant about that for days, but I do wish that more groups played more consistently. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But
yeah,
and then I don't think any of us will ever find out, but I know WGI did experiment in Scholastic World and Independent World with the quad panel, the 4-person panel. So instead of 2 judges in each caption, there were like essentially trial or ghost judges. They had 4 in each caption, so 4 music GE, 4 vision, 4 music, 4, all that. I don't know who gets that data or if it ever gets released, or I'm assuming it probably won't.
It will never get released. They will never let that out to the public. I just think because if you did and like placements were really mixed up in a lot of areas, adding the double panels, because again, so what to me mathematically,
nobody could be upset because like they didn't do it this year. Like, hey, we trialed this to see if we wanted to do it. Like we kept things the exact same they have been. So nobody could be upset.
Exactly. So to me, the reason you do it is because we'll go to the X controversy or perceived controversy that, you're looking at 1s and 2s across the board and then one judge, 6, 4, and then they lose by a 10th. So in that sense, that judge is an outlier mathematically speaking. When you double the panel, it takes the weight off of each judge's score has less weight to the overall averaging and how they calculate it. So then if three of the 4 judges in the caption agree and one person's way lower, it lessens the effect of that on the aggregate. Like it's still going to pull it down, but it's not going to pull it down if you're averaging 2 versus 4. Just like that's the idea behind doing it, which I like. I mean,
if they were going to actually implement it, they would probably have to tell people like maybe not exactly what would have switched around, but they would probably be like, yeah, it would have changed some things. We're not going to tell you what, but it would have changed some things. But
I feel like even if they said that, people would just assume that means X would have won.
Well, I mean, you could just say throughout the
True. There'd be no way to know. And honestly, I'm not saying X would have won. We will never know. It's all, again, I stand by they're never going to let that information out.
I'm going to find out. I'm going to hack WGI. No, I'm just kidding.
Do not hack WGI. Nobody do that. But yeah, I think it would be good. I like the idea of 4 judges per caption instead of 2, reducing the impact of 1 judge outliers on any given night.
I do think that I heard that the judges weren't thrilled with the lack of proximity.
I was shocked. I was shocked how close we were. We did not realize the seats that we bought. We bought them to be right in the area of where the judges were, But little did we know, we got to our seats. I mean, like shoulder to shoulder with judges.
It was me, and then the next seat over was the judge sitting in the seat.
It.
So
We
I
were
was like,
shocked.
yeah.
We were shocked how close that they
I
did
was
not have
chat-
more
I
of a
was chatting
buffer.
them up. I was trying to influence score. I'm just kidding.
No, we didn't. We were not conversating with them. I will say though, on the break, we fist bumped Mike McIntosh, and before it started, Rarick came and said hi and stuff from down there. But we were not
Yeah.
interfering or trying to influence or disrupting them in any way, shape, or form.
No, letting them do their thing.
Yeah, they're there to do a job. They do it well. I was shocked how close there wasn't more of a buffer between the judges and audience members.
But and how low the visual judges were. I know. I heard they were bringing them down low, but like
They did. They brought them down this year.
they were low. All right. Well, they probably don't like that, but we'll see.
No, I would think you'd want to be a little higher as a visual judge.
So,
But
yeah.
Dude, great indoor season. Is there anything? I'm sure there were things we talking about on here, but we like this to be organic. So if we didn't think of it in the moment, we didn't think of it. It is what it is. But
Yep.
it was a fun indoor season. A lot of cool drumming, a lot of good groups, a lot of good music, a lot of good shows. Great weekend as always. Anybody we said hi to at finals, we encouraged that stuff. It was great meeting everybody. We did meet and talk to, even if it was just for a minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I'll get this ready tonight and we'll release it tomorrow. This is April 23rd, so I'll put it on the 24th. There's like 3 reaction videos we still want to do to wrap up the coverage. We're going to watch X, United, and GMU. I think those are the only 3, but I have a list on my phone. I'll check it later. Be on the lookout for the last few reaction videos of the season. We'll probably watch a little bit of Open like we did last year, a little bit of Scholastic World, highlight some of the standout groups in those classes. Other than that, comment, like, subscribe. Follow Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, or the join button on YouTube. You got anything else, dude?
I'm good, man.
All right. We'll see everybody soon with the last few reactions. Peace.
Peace.